All right, hello and welcome to today's verdict, the interactive show that gives you your legal rights and options. I'm your host and trial attorney, David Lesch. Today's verdict is always encouraging you to stay connected, so make sure to tweet me at David Lesch and hashtag Ask Today's Verdict if you have a question. And check us out at bronxnet.tv. Have you ever wondered what the salary of a job you are applying for is, or how much the old employee was making? Well, a new salary transparency law took effect in New York City this week, requiring most employers to provide salary ranges on job posts. Here to tell us more is employment attorney Peter Rahbar. Peter, thanks for being here. And I want you to know you're the first guest that we have in studio in almost 3 years, and it just feels good just to feel. I feel the energy. It just feels good, Peter.
Yeah,
I have to say.
It feels great, David, and it's such an honor to be your first guest here talking about what might be one of the hottest topics in employment law in a long time.
Well, let's start, a little bit from the beginning. Let's just say I have more than 4 employees, and I work in New York City, which I do. Now I'm looking for an employee. What before this law, what did I have to post or not post? And what has changed since the transparency law?
Sure. Well, before this law, there was a lot of flexibility about what you could post or not post. I mean, and most employers would post a job description, and they would post, neutral job requirements, education requirements, experience requirements, et cetera, non-discriminatory, criteria for the job. But now New York City has joined several other jurisdictions throughout the country in requiring employers who advertise for job positions to post a good faith salary range. So that's a minimum salary and a maximum salary, and it could be either an annual salary or a hourly rate.
Now, it's funny that you say good faith. In other words, I have to just do an analysis of what I think the job is in terms of how much I should be paying. So let's say it's for, say a paralegal. Let's say, maybe it's $45,000 or maybe it's $75,000. That's the kind of range that I would put into my post, I guess.
Right. So the law requires a good faith determination of what an employer would pay. So in some cases, it could be something, for a paralegal position, depending on experience. There could be tens of thousands of dollars that separate what an employer would pay to such a candidate. But I think a lot of this is to be determined. Right now, the focus is on getting the information out there, getting employers to comply. And then we're going to see what happens with these ranges. We've already seen some employers take broad liberties with what kind of ranges they're publishing. And if you're going to do that, then you better have a justification.
What was the rationale for the new law? Why do it?
Well, this is like the next step in several steps the New York City Council has taken to eliminate the pay equity gap that exists in our workplaces. And whether it's based on gender, whether it's based on race or any other protected category. And so they want the information out there. And the hope is that by putting the information out there, it's forcing employers to take a look at what they're actually paying their employees and making sure that, that there is equity amongst their employees for similar roles.
Let's talk enforcement. Who's responsible for making sure that somebody actually accurately posts what they think the job entails in terms of financial compensation?
Well, the law falls under the New York City Human Rights Commission. Now, they have their own team that's going to be out looking at job postings to see if they comply with the law, but also individuals have the opportunity to report posts that are not in compliance with the law.
Is there any kind of punishment? Let's say you don't. What's? Because it looks like I saw something about violations up to $250,000. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it sure is, and there's no way to get employers to act seriously, or in this case, in a frenzy, without threatening them. And so what this law has is a sort of one free strike policy where if you're found to have violated the law the first time, you have 30 days to correct it. After that, if there are further violations, there's a wide range of penalties that have been set forth in the law, including simple things like posting notices of violations, but there could be fines, and the fines could go up to $250,000.
And who's covered in terms of the employer? I mean, what if I only have one employee or I only have 2 employees? What's the cutoff where I must do this for? Like, what if it's my own shop? you know, I'm an attorney, I'm just hiring a secretary or a paralegal, one person, do I have to do that still?
Well, it covers any employer that has 4 or more employees.
Okay.
Now, in your case, it counts the owner as one of the employees.
Oh, it does?
And at least one of those employees has to be located in New York City. So if you're a company that has an office in New York City and the rest of your employees are on Long Island, you would still be covered. It would also cover anyone who's working remotely for you from New York City. So if a job is capable of being done by a remote employee based in New York City, you would be covered.
Women and minorities, right? I know they're the ones that have been complaining the most that there's been this pay gap, certainly throughout the city. How much do you think this is going to change what many feel is an unfair salary discrepancy among minorities and women? Do you think this will work?
I think it's a really positive step. I don't think it's going to solve all the problems that exist. I mean, these are real problems. I represent a lot of women. I represent a lot of people of color who have had pay equity issues. It's a very difficult issue to deal with. But this law, if it works, and I think it will, and if an employer takes it seriously, and that's going to depend a lot on enforcement, it will force employers to take a deep look at how they're paying people and whether it makes sense and whether they can defend it. And if they can't, there will be other problems beyond just fines and notices associated with this law.
And what type of problems do you see?
Well, there could be lawsuits, discrimination lawsuits that result from that. There could be government agencies who
would you do that kind of work?
Absolutely. I've
So
handled
you'd
that
be
all the time.
representing the employees who would be
Yes.
bringing actions against the employers.
Yeah. And in fact, I do both. I work with employers to handle pay equity issues that they may suspect or to help them find them if they exist, but I also represent.
So any final tips? Somebody's watching today and they think they might have gotten a pay discrepancy. The job's really a $50,000 job and they were just offered $25,000. What would you tell them to do?
Well, I mean, you have a right to go to the Commission on Human Rights and file a complaint. I would start by just talking to the company. I think that's the more reasonable thing to do, and ask them questions about why a posting says one thing and your offer says another thing. And if that doesn't work out, there's always lawyers that can help you in these talks, and there's always government agencies.
Always lawyers. And listen, I want to thank you very much for being here and again
Great.
for being our first guest.
Thank you so much, and I look forward to coming back.
Absolutely. All right, we have to take a quick break, but up next, Legal Aid Society is here to tell us about voter rights for incarcerated people in Rikers Island. We'll be back with more after this.